All right, ready to dive in. We're tackling Moonlight today, a film everyone seems to call a modern classic. A 2016 film that really digs into storytelling and why we tell stories, I think. And, it's earned that reputation as like a really important film of the 21st century. And that's what we're going to unpack today. What makes this film so impactful?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
we're going to be pulling mostly from, believe it or not, its Wikipedia page, which is really insightful for this one.
Yeah, it really is. And you know what? Moonlight, it seems simple on the surface, right?
Yeah.
But it's got these layers underneath that just draw you in.
Exactly. It's like this onion. So, okay, if you haven't seen the film, it follows Chiron. He's a young black man growing up in Miami, but, it's not a typical narrative. They split the film into 3 chapters.
Right.
Little, Chiron, and Black, and each one focuses on, like, a different part of his life.
For the different age. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is where it gets cool. They use 3 different actors
Yes.
to play him.
Yeah, and it's such a deliberate choice.
Mhm.
They break away from that one actor trying to age throughout the whole thing.
Right.
By having 3 different actors, the filmmakers, they highlight how his identity changes.
It's so true.
Who we are is always being shaped by everything around us.
And it makes you think, like, how would we cast ourselves at different points in our life? It's not about mimicking. It's about, like, embodying.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. And Moonlight is great at mixing style and the substance, the story. It's not just about, like, what happens, but how they show it to you.
It's an experience.
Yeah, an experience,
And
especially visually.
Yes. I was going to say, like, the visuals. I remember reading about how they used CinemaScope, but you don't see that a lot, I feel like, in these, like, coming-of-age dramas.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
CinemaScope is usually for, like, those big epic films.
Yeah.
But here, they use it to make even small moments feel huge.
Mhm.
Like Chiron's struggles are happening on this big stage. It makes the everyday feel profound.
It's those close-ups, too. Like, they're already so intimate, so raw, and then the way they're framed just, like, makes it epic.
Yeah. And even the score, done by Nicholas Britell, he uses, like, chopped and screwed music,
Huh.
from hip-hop to mix together orchestral music with these urban sounds. It's pretty cool.
Wow. So you have these classical instruments remixed. It's unexpected, right? Almost
Yeah.
jarring. What do you think that adds to the film?
It makes you feel like you're in a dream. It blurs what's real and what's memory. Just like those chopped and screwed samples, Chiron's memories are all fragmented, repeating.
We're in his head.
Exactly.
Fragmented, layered, just like his identity.
Mm.
And speaking of identity, I mean, we got to talk about how the film looks at being a black man.
It's central to the film,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's this one line by Juan, remember, he's the drug dealer who becomes like a father to Chiron. Says, there are black people everywhere. Remember that, okay? No place you can go in the world ain't got no black people. We was the first on this planet.
It's a powerful statement. Like, even outside the film, what do you take from that?
On the one hand, it's just stating a fact, right? Black people are everywhere, always have been. But people forget that.
Yeah.
But it also hints at, like, the vulnerability underneath, all the weight that Chiron carries with him. It's a reminder that, yeah, black identity is a lot of things, but it's always dealing with the outside world, with what people expect.
And how those expectations, right, especially for black men, how that must play into Chiron figuring himself out, especially his sexuality.
Totally.
Yeah.
He's dealing with 2 things at once. What society says a black man should be, and then who he is.
It's interesting. You know what I've always been drawn to? It's going to sound weird, but that image of water that keeps coming up, it feels important, almost spiritual.
No, you're spot on. It's crucial. Water is like this cleansing, transformative thing for Chiron.
Yeah.
He's always drawn to it, finds peace in it.
Like being reborn when he's in the water.
Totally.
Yeah.
And, it connects to this idea of the Black Atlantic. Scholars talk about it, how, like, black identity is shaped by history, by people moving around, all of those cultures mixing across the ocean. Just another layer to think about with Chiron, right?
Wow. Yeah. His own story, but then this bigger context of, like, history and culture. It's amazing how Moonlight does that, like, weaving it all together. Individual experience, societal pressures, all of it. Speaking of weaving together, what about all the food in this film? I'm, like, obsessed with how they show food.
Oh, for sure. Food isn't just food in Moonlight. It's like a secret language, for intimacy, connection, all that.
Now that you mention it, I'm remembering all these scenes where food is front and center. Like, it's saying something without saying it.
Yeah. Cooking for someone, it's an act of caring. It's like, I see you, I value you,
Yeah.
but you don't need words.
Makes me think of that scene in chapter 3. Chiron's all grown up and reconnects with Kevin, his friend from way back. Kevin makes him a whole meal.
Yes. the chef's special.
Yeah.
And the way they filmed it, like each step, every detail of Kevin cooking, it shows how much care he's putting into it, all that tenderness, intimacy.
And the thing is, you don't often see that between two black men on screen, you know? Like, it's revolutionary just by showing it.
Totally. Challenging what we expect to see. This different kind of intimacy, tender, deep. And it goes back to how the film looks at vulnerability, right?
It does. Like, it's saying being vulnerable, especially for black men, that's strong, not weak.
Yeah, exactly. And the critics, the audiences, they felt it. Moonlight has a 98% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
People consider it one of the best films of the century, consistently.
That's huge. Shows you how much it connects with people. Like, no matter who you are, those feelings of love, loss, finding yourself, it's universal.
For sure. We all go through it. Moonlight cuts through culture, through everything, to show it makes us human.
There were some different takes, though, of course. I was reading one critic. They were like, this movie isn't for straight, white, middle-class people. It makes you wonder, can art only speak to certain types of people?
That's the question, isn't it? But Moonlight, I think it makes you see things from someone else's shoes, to challenge how you see the world.
To get out of your comfort zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Art can do that. Makes you see things in a new light, appreciate how complex we are as humans. And speaking of big moments, we can't forget the Oscars. 2017, that was huge. First LGBTQ film, all-black cast, to win Best Picture. Incredible. Talk about making history. It says a lot, don't you think? Like, how much this film got to people, even if they weren't expecting to connect with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, think about it. Even with that crazy mix-up, Moonlight still won. That meant something.
Right.
Like, things were changing in Hollywood, I mean. It showed that people want different stories, stories that challenge us, that show us experiences we might not know about otherwise.
It makes you wonder, where are we now with all that? With representation, telling different stories? Still feels like we got a ways to go.
We do.
Yeah.
But those conversations about identity, about making space for everyone, those are important.
So important. And I think that's what Moonlight does so well. It gets those conversations going in a way that's like real and emotional. It makes you think about your own biases, you know? Makes you want to be more understanding.
Totally. It's like a work of art, but also like a call to action almost.
Right. So as we're wrapping up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with this. We see Chiron going through so much, right? Trying to be a man, a black man, with all these expectations on him. And it made me think, how does Moonlight change how we see masculinity? Not just for black men, but for everyone.
Such a good question. I think the film says that you can be strong and vulnerable at the same time. It's not one or the other.
Yeah.
Chiron, he's both tender and tough. He embraces those parts of himself. That's real strength.
Not letting those old ideas about manhood box you in. Doesn't matter your race, your sexuality. Be who you are.
Exactly. Moonlight shows us how powerful it is to just be yourself, to connect with people on a real level. It stays with you.
It does. It really does. So to everyone listening, think about those moments, those vulnerable moments, those intimate moments. How did they connect with your own life? And how can we all challenge those old ways of thinking, you know, so we can finally be our true selves, connect with each other in a deeper way? That's what it's all about. Until next time, keep diving deep.